The protagonist's past life was that of an ordinary mage, a commoner in a world where commoners couldn't wield magic with skill. Despite relentless efforts, he saw no progress, while the nobles were gifted powerful spellcasting abilities. Before ending his life, a noble cruelly allowed him one last display of magic. When the protagonist barely conjured a single spark, the noble mocked him as weak and worthless. He coldly recited the words of William Bogdo, the father of magic, who taught that those without blessed bloodlines or talent could never truly improve no matter how hard they tried. Then, with merciless finality, he engulfed the protagonist in a towering blaze. Though he was dying, the protagonist had to admit the noble's magic was truly magnificent. He yearned to master such powerful spells. Fortune smiled upon him as a divine force granted his wish. He was reborn as a prince named Loy. Upon opening his eyes, Loy mistook the towering maids around him for giants. In panic, he unleashed fire magic, scorching a huge hole in the room. The maids gaped in awe at Loy's overwhelming power. Meanwhile, the citizens of the Salom kingdom rejoiced at the birth of their seventh prince. A decade later, the kingdom had transformed greatly, while Loy remained a prince who always tried to escape the maids. It turned out Loy was obsessed with studying magic, but the maids pushed him to learn hunting instead. Whenever he met palace staff, Loy begged them to keep his location secret from the maids. Watching Loy flee so often, the courtiers were at a loss, unable to advise him properly. Loy was younger than the other princes. He had no claim to the throne. Yet Loy was a prodigy, fluent in ancient languages and able to read magical tomes. Many believed he was the reincarnation of William Bogdo himself. In truth, Loy's past life was that of a mere commoner. Although reborn as the seventh prince, he retained his memories. Now Loy held high social status and was revered by the people. Still, he clung to his past life's passion, deep research into magic. Loy only cared about the library filled with spellbooks. Every visit lit a fire of excitement in him. But Maid Shvar found Loy, so this time he gave up running. She dragged him out to sword train as always. Loy argued that since he wasn't heir to the throne, he shouldn't waste time on swordsmanship. But Shvar believed royal blood demanded sword mastery. She had been training him for 3 years and treated it as her life's mission. Knowing he couldn't escape, Shvar Loy reluctantly trained harder, eager to return to his books. They clashed wooden swords again. Loy noticed Shvar always held back against him. Meanwhile, he possessed a magic that could mimic her exact movements. This time he planned to cheat by copying her every move. But Shvar's superior strength, stamina, and height kept pushing Loy back, so he resorted to a spell to boost. Loy expanded his sword and bulging muscles, and this spell also made him hover in midair, so now he and Shvar were the same height. Loy had effectively levelled every gap between them, making their battle fiercely balanced. Then Loy moved just like Shvar, launching sword attacks that mirrored hers perfectly. After some back and forth, Loy thought Shvar was caught up in his fighting style, so he decided to stop copying and land a surprise strike. But Shvar blocked Loy's attack and struck him back for cheating. Turns out she had seen through Loy's tricks, the hovering and the sword's size boost, and was secretly thrilled by him using 2 spells at once. Yet Loy was actually capable of activating 4 spells simultaneously. Fortunately, Shvar hadn't discovered that yet. Right after training, Shvar dragged Loy into the bath with the maids, where he overheard a story about a demon sealed inside a forbidden book beneath the castle. That night, Loy sneaked into the castle to investigate. First, he used wind stealth magic to slip past the guards. This was an invisibility spell manipulating air currents and light reflections, so even standing right there, no one could see him. When he heard talk of a powerful demon, Loy's excitement soared. According to the guards, a powerful barrier still sealed the demon's prison set by the master wizard. Yet Loy shattered that puny seal in seconds. Having lived in the palace for 10 years, Loy had only now discovered this secret study. To him, it was a paradise for a magic-loving kid like himself. As he sat down, opening a book, another suddenly shot up, releasing the filthy, sinister laughter of Grimo the demon. Grimo thanked Loy for breaking the door's seal, and begged him to break the seal on the book to release it. In return, Grimo promised heaps of gold, but Loy knew better. Grimo was a trickster, using gold transmutation magic to deceive. This demon needed to be locked away forever, never freed. Grimo, scared, now swore not to harm anyone, and even offered to teach Loi ancient magic he'd never seen before. Loi's heart leapt with hope. Was this true? Grimo shared his excitement, having already lured Loi into breaking his seal. Loi then cast a key-shaped spell to shatter the lock, and as Grimo emerged, he demonstrated his dark arts. The first was the Black Seal Cannon, a dark explosion enveloping Loi and violently shaking the room. Grimo thought he'd vaporized Loi, but Loi protected himself with a spherical barrier and even praised the spell's power, eager to learn more. Grimo, frustrated, furiously hurled more Black Seal cannons at Loi. Though tired, he couldn't pierce Loi's shield. Meanwhile, Loi studied the spell's execution, even daring to test its damage by poking a finger outside the barrier. Seeing the swirling magic spinning on Loi's hand, Grimo felt a blend of pain and excitement. He unleashed his strongest Black Seal cannon, shaping it into a spiraling vortex aimed at Loi's shield. Loi gained new insight into combining dual-headed demon incantations. Meanwhile, Grimo sweated but failed to break the shield. Realizing his attacks had only educated Loi, Grimo felt ashamed and tried to escape, but Loi trapped him underground with another barrier. Loi confessed that he used to recklessly cast spells, destroying everything around him, so creating strong barriers was his safeguard. After mastering offensive spells, he wanted to test Grimo's defensive magic. Loi summoned a fiery flame ball to roast the demon inside the barrier. Expecting some impressive counterattack, Loi was surprised when Grimo merely collapsed, panting smoke, too intimidated to challenge Loi anymore. Loi restored the room to its original state, leaving Grimo dumbfounded by his overwhelming power. Now, Grimo called Loi master, acknowledging the pain of Loi's fire spell. Loi wanted to push his magic further to see if Grimo could endure it. Thinking Loi wanted to harm him, Grimo knelt and admitted defeat, trembling as he begged to become Loi's pet. Loi agreed instantly, demanding Grimo shrink to avoid suspicion. Grimo transformed into a mischievous little familiar. Though now a pet, the demon schemed to seize Loi's mind when he wasn't watching. But once Grimo saw the terrifying magic power Loi wielded, he abandoned that plan. From then on, Grimo insisted Loi call him by this new name. Meanwhile, Loi's older brother, the talented second Prince Amb, dressed sharply and prepared to visit Loi's room. Loi, absorbed in studying magic books, noticed someone approaching and told Grimo to hide quickly to avoid detection. A and B soon arrived and invited Loi to train magic together. They went to the royal training grounds where Amb's precise spellcasting impressed the maids. Loi knew Ambi was a stellar prince, rumoured to be the heir apparent, who occasionally invited him for fun magic practice sessions. Loi didn't care about throne disputes, so he was friendly with Ambi. Loi only wanted freedom to research magic on his own terms. Today, Loi decided to up the challenge, unleashing fireballs that bent mid-air, but still hit their marks multiple times on different targets. Though Loi's magic never missed, the nobles refused to acknowledge his talent. Loi shrugged off their gossip content just to fuel his passion for magic. Understanding this, A and B bid Loi farewell to rest. Loi felt relieved, finally free to practice his spells alone. This was just the beginning for Loi's journey into the deep mysteries of magic, a path filled with wonder, struggle, and the fierce desire to grow beyond limits. The quiet determination in Loi's heart was a beacon, inviting us to reflect on our own hidden strengths and dreams. Defeated, Loi no longer dared to argue with Grimo. Trembling, he meekly asked to become Grimo's pet, and to his surprise, Grimo agreed immediately. Wanting to keep the demon unnoticed, Loi insisted Grimo shrink into a mischievous little spirit beast. Though he accepted the role of pet, Grimo remained cunning, scheming to seize Loi's mind whenever he wasn't paying attention. Only when Grimo glimpsed the terrifying magic power Loi wielded did he abandon that plan. From then on, Grimo wanted Loi to call him by his new name, Grimo. Loi's older brother was none other than the brilliant second Prince Ambe. Today, Ambi dressed sharply, preparing to visit Loi's room. Loi was immersed in studying ancient spellbooks when he sensed someone approaching. Quickly, he warned Grimo to hide before Ambi arrived. Ambe invited Loi to join him for magic practice, and the two made their way to the royal training grounds inside the palace. At the training ground, second Prince Ambi displayed flawless spellcasting skills, leaving the attendants in awe. Loi knew Ambi was destined for the throne, rumoured to be the heir apparent, yet Ambi often invited Loi to practice magic, not out of rivalry, but simply for fun. Loi didn't care about the throne struggle. He treasured freedom above all, wanting only to delve deeper into his magical studies. Today, Loi decided to challenge himself harder than ever. He unleashed a fireball that bent mid-flight yet still struck its target not once, but multiple times, hitting different marks with precision. Despite Loi's flawless display, the nobles refused to acknowledge his talent, but Loi brushed off their empty criticism, caring only that he could fuel his passion for magic. Anbei understood this well, so he bid Loi farewell and went to rest early. Loi's heart lifted now he could freely train without distractions. Eager to test Grimo's dual spell ability from before Loi tried to cast with him again, but Grimo objected. "I only have one mouth," Loi smirked and told Grimo to shrink into his palm and become his second mouth. Grimo was speechless, never expecting Loi to play such a wild trick. Then Loi asked Grimo to launch a fireball spell together. As Grimo chanted, Loi mumbled the incantation alongside him. The result, Grimo's magic overloaded, unable to cast the spell. Loi had read 100 spell lines consecutively, trying to trigger a simultaneous activation, an insane feat no one had ever dared attempt. Grimo scolded Loi, calling him a madman. After some calculation, Loi decided to control Grimo's mouth directly. Now, whatever Loi said, Grimo had to echo. The bond between them had become something wild, unpredictable, yet strangely powerful. Grimo's reluctant cooperation marked a new chapter in their partnership, one where magic was no longer just mastered, but shared in a dance between two souls fused by fate. After some calculations, Loi decided to take full control of Grimo's mouth, so no matter what he said, Grimo had to repeat it, without argument. Then Loi cast 2 advanced spells, fire and water, simultaneously mixing them with the vast magic power inside him. Since this was a dual spell, Grimo thought Loi might just flatten the entire kingdom. But instead, Loi launched the spell into the sky, causing the whole kingdom to panic. Meanwhile, Anbei's divine servants wondered why he paid so much attention to Loi. Anbei explained that Loi's spell had grazed every target, proving his exceptional magic skill. He could one day become a great sage, so Anbei wanted Loi by his side when he became king. Suddenly, everyone noticed the sky outside had darkened, even though it was still daytime. Grimo was panicking because Loi's spell had torn the sky apart, turning day into night. Loi himself was terrified and scrambled to restore the sky. When daylight returned, Grimo was amazed at Loi's power. Even though Grimo was just Loi's familiar, he always took care of him each morning. Sometimes Grimo was annoyed, but reminded himself he would have to take over Loi's body someday, so he endured his duties as a loyal servant. Today, Grimo read a news report about the giant hole in the sky caused by Loi. However, Loi was only interested in news about brave adventurers conquering dungeons and bringing back gold jewels and rare magic items. He decided to journey to a dungeon himself to discover what wonders awaited. Knowing everyone would cause a fuss if he left the palace, Loi took out a seed and cast a nature spell. The seed sprouted into a perfect clone of Loi. But Loi had to figure out how to escape Sinha's watchful eyes, his lady-in-waiting, who could detect even the slightest change in him. After some planning, Loi set off to flee the palace with Grimo. Meanwhile, the doll Loi created impersonated him, fooling the servants. In truth, Loi had separated Grimo's soul and allowed it to possess the doll, while Grimo's body crawled into Loi's palm to become his second mouth. This way, Loi could communicate with Grimo at home and stay informed. At that moment, the ladies-in-waiting were happily watching Loi tend to his appearance. Grimo suddenly remembered Loi wasn't home, meaning he could wreak havoc in the palace without anyone stopping him. But when he heard Loi call him a kind familiar, Grimo felt shy and abandoned the thought. Loi had been gone a while, but still hadn't found any dungeon yet. The adventure was just beginning, with Loi's spirit burning bright despite the unknown dangers ahead. Would this daring gamble pay off? Only time would tell as Loi and Grimo pushed forward, 2 souls intertwined against a world full of mysteries. Nguk suddenly noticed a horde of monsters chasing a girl below. Everyone thought she'd be devoured, but with one swift punch she obliterated the first beast. The others flew away with just a kick. Then, facing the final monster, she unleashed a powerful skill that sent it flying, stripped of its essence. Watching from afar, Loi recognized the girl as a martial artist. Having read about them before, he knew they wielded a force called Chi, an energy that bursts out with devastating effect when skills are used. Loi was eager to learn from her, but as a prince he had to keep his identity hidden. The girl, sensing Loi hiding on the mountain, mistook him for a threat and charged to punch him. But when she saw Loi's new appearance, she was utterly smitten. He looked too handsome to be real. Loi had used magic to blend his face with Ambar's, crafting a completely new identity. Introducing himself as a rookie adventurer, he learned she was a B-rank adventurer named Thao. Overwhelmed by Loi's charm, Thao gasped, confessing she'd been lonely for 18 years. Men never liked strong women like her. Determined, she vowed to make Loi her lover. When Loi invited her to conquer the dungeon, Thao eagerly agreed. Inside, she smashed every monster to show off her skills, while Loi's eyes glowed only for the shining stones, leaving Thao speechless. Through their chat, Loi discovered Thao had no teammates, and he grew curious about her chi-based martial arts. Seeing his interest, Thao poured out everything she knew about sensing and training chi. She even teased Loi to absorb her chi through his mouth for better understanding. Loi mimicked her training, trying to awaken chi inside himself. Noticing his discomfort, Thao worried chi training can make lungs burn if unprepared, but after persistent effort, Loi successfully activated chi. His excitement soared, believing this power could fuse with magic. Seeing Loi's enthusiasm, Thao promised to teach him more. Loi happily accepted, making Tao's joy impossible to hide. Meanwhile, Grimo stayed put, impersonating Loi to enjoy royal life. Soon, Sinfar arrived to drag the prince off for sword training. Grimo's face said it all, this was trouble. Thao had just defeated the dungeon's final boss, collecting the reward. She dismissed it as low-level and worthless, but Loi was thrilled his first time witnessing dungeon treasures. Seeing Loi's mastery of Chi Tao was ecstatic, even wanting to rush home to tell her father to prepare her wedding. But first, they had to open a mysterious mirror. Just then, a sword shot out from the mirror, forcing Loi to shield Thao. From below, a bone-chilling skeletal monster emerged, the true dungeon boss. Thao's face twisted in fear, but she masked it, telling Loi not to worry. Then she pushed him toward the dungeon exit, urging him to escape. Lich conjured deadly glass shields to strike Thao, who dodged desperately. It took all her strength to shatter one. This monster, usually reserved for A-rank adventurers, baffled Thao. Why was it in a low-level dungeon? She needed to stall for Loi's escape while battling the relentless foe. Meanwhile, Loi was flying away, recovering from Thao's chi strike. To protect himself, he created a barrier, catching two curious monsters in the blast. He noticed Grimo had lost signal and said nothing. Actually, Grimo was being tortured at home by Sinfar, desperately calling Loi for help. Inside, Thao was on the edge, barely holding against Lich. As she prepared to flee, Lich spoke, mocking her chi strikes as weak compared to magic. He boasted of devouring many sages who dared enter the dungeon. But Thao refused to be prey, while Loi dodged Lich's deadly strike with reflexes that stunned even the monster. Thao reminded Lich of Loi's true nature. While chi might be weak back home, Loi's power was extraordinary. Loi praised chi's beauty, brightening Thao's heart. She charged forward, unleashing every strike she'd ever trained, aiming to break Lich's shield, and told him she was too busy training to find a boyfriend. Finally, Thao launched her signature move, the giant heart bullet, smashing through Lich's barrier. Exhausted, she could barely stand. Seeing her drained, Loi felt a pang of sympathy. Her lifelong training seemed futile. Suddenly, Lich unleashed a deadly attack aimed to finish her. But Loi arrived just in time, shielding Thao with his barrier, leaving her stunned. Now it was time to punish Lich for mocking her efforts. As Lich began chanting a spell, Loi darted behind him with blinding speed, leaving the monster confused over what just hit him. Loi inhaled deeply, preparing his next strike. He wondered if he could combine chi with magic, and felt it was possible since Thao said it only required focused breathing. Filling his lungs with every ounce of air, Loi drained the dungeon of all its chi. Outside, Lich hammered Loi's barrier relentlessly. Knowing he needed more air, Loi shattered his own shield to speed things up. As he stepped outside, Lich crazily launched an attack. Thao watched in fear, worried he'd be hit. But Loi moved with lightning speed, using chi dodging every blow. Once he'd absorbed enough air, he fused it with his magic, taking a moment to form a brand new spell. Then, he unleashed it, cutting through all of Lich's assaults. Loi kept refining his technique, making it sharper, faster, and more deadly with each strike. The dance of chi and magic had just begun. Loi unleashed a relentless barrage of strikes on Lich without needing to chant spells. As their battle unfolded, Lich gradually realized that Loi's chi control was more potent than magic, and with his rapid assault, Lich could no longer defend himself. Below, Thao watched eagerly hoping for Loi's grand finale, so Loi unleashed a decisive blow to split Lick and his protective barrier in two. Loi and Thao reunited, their smiles glowing with victory as they opened the prize, a dull knife. Yet Loi believed this blade held a mysterious magic. He asked Thao to let him keep it. After defeating the final monster, the dungeon slowly began to collapse. Loi sensed that the knife had absorbed many treasures and resolved to take it with him while Thao trembled in fear. With a swift move, Loi lifted the knife as the dungeon vanished without a trace. He felt the blade would store its power underground until the dungeon reappeared. Meanwhile, Thao wondered if Loi's use of chi to defeat Lick was driven by a grudge over Lick's insult against her. But Loi just replied with a smile, "Chi really is fascinating." Shortly after, Loi bid farewell to Thao and soared back to the royal palace. Before parting, Thao promised to train hard to become someone interesting in Loi's eyes, but she forgot to ask for his contact information. Upon arriving, Loi found his pet Grimo utterly beaten. Turns out Shva had dragged Grimo off for sword training, even though the boy knew nothing about swordsmanship. Shva thought the prince had lost his edge and decided to train him strictly. Now Grimo was lying there crying, blaming Loi for coming home too late. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Loi had collected many glowing stones and the mysterious knife, but most were useless. Only the knife seemed valuable, so Loi decided to study it first. He soaked it in hot water and polished its surface successfully, extracting a magical liquid called marrow essence that could enhance weapons. Loi carefully separated all the marrow essence into test tubes and shook them gently. He knew this precious substance couldn't be wasted, so he used water magic to carefully analyze it. The result. He uncovered the formula for marrow essence, a blend of silver oil and magic powder. While silver and oil were easy to find, the magic powder he planned to craft from the dungeon's knife cap. Thus began Loi's quest to create marrow essence and strengthen his weapons. Later, he approached the king to ask for a bag of silver. The king could have gifted gold, but Loi only needed silver. Pleased by Loi's frugality, the king praised the young boy's thriftiness, unaware Loi was melting all the silver in a pot. Next, Loi headed to train swordsmanship with Shva, who promised to reward him with a bottle of oil if he could land one hit. Despite combining magic and sword skills, Loi couldn't keep up with Shva's swift movements, and was ultimately defeated without landing a single blow. Yet Shva happily handed over the oil. She was genuinely glad to see Loi's improvement. She had thought he'd lost his touch recently, so seeing his progress moved her to tears. Shva also admired that at just 10 years old, Loi was already blending swordplay with magic. She believed Loi's talent was undeniable, and his journey was only beginning. That spark of youthful determination mixing sword and spell promised a future where he'd rise beyond his limits. The emotional weight of this scene was clear. Growth isn't instant, but every small victory fuels the fire within. In the days to come, he would rise to lead the kingdom's knights, but Loi had no time for idle chatter, so he bid farewell to Shinfa and set off to craft his potion. Gathering every rare ingredient, Loi and Grimo poured them into the cauldron, and together they succeeded in creating the potent, strengthening serum. Next, Loi went to Ambisi's armory to request a large batch of weapons for testing. The royal guard, seeing him, assumed he was just playing with their swords, but at the word of Prince Ambach, they obediently handed over the brand new blades, fearful they might be damaged. Hearing their whispers doubting him sparked Loi's determination. He and Grimo vowed to craft a cache of weapons so powerful it would open their eyes. Fueled by that fire, Loi feverishly engraved enhancements onto the swords, even inscribing spells so potent that the first blade shattered under the strain. Grimo reminded him, failure is the mother of success, so they pressed on experimenting with every sword. Though many failed, Loi ultimately forged a formidable arsenal of empowered blades. Out of 120 swords, 50 survived the trials, though Loi actually succeeded in strengthening 80. He just had a knack for mixing in extra reagents, leading to some failures. AMBC saw that Loi's talent surpassed many royal mages, even exceeding his own expectations. Yet the guards still doubted, thinking Loi was all talk. But when Ambis sheathed a sword, the scabbard split in two. Grimo beamed with pride. The sword, destined for Prince Ambach, was carefully enhanced by Loi, who hoped to see its power shine in battle. So Ambisi invited Loi on a beast hunt in the forest, eager to put the blade to the test. Before dawn, as the city slowly woke, and newsboys prepared their stands, Loi's team set out to slay monsters. Alongside Prince Ambach and Shinfa, they headed toward a forest teeming with fierce creatures. Though perilous Loi's excitement was palpable, this was his first time here and he was eager to see how the enhanced swords would perform. Prince Ambach noticed Shinfa sticking close to Loi like glue and teased her, wondering if there was something special in her heart for him. Suddenly, Shinfa drew her sword, startling the prince. But she had sensed a pack of kobo wolves nearby, and Loi had spotted them too, though he pretended otherwise, thanks to Thao's earlier teachings on sensing ki energy. Thanks to those strengthened swords, every wolf was sliced clean in two so sharp they could cut through steel. The royal soldiers wielding these blades for the first time were wide-eyed with amazement, and Bach swelled with pride having such a skilled younger brother. Even Shinfa with her unenhanced sword decimated a heap of monsters. When a wolf lunged at Loi, Tao appeared out of nowhere and kicked its snout clean off. Loi tried to act casual, but Tao approached him closely, noting his familiar face and key signature. She feared her secret might be exposed this time. Seeing Tao getting so close to the Prince Shinfa's jealousy, flared, nearly sparking a fight between the two women. Luckily, Prince Ambach stepped in just in time. That night, the group camped by the forest lake. When Prince Ambach approached to greet Tao, she lit up with joy. She noticed his face resembled someone who had travelled with her before, and his ki resembled Loi's. Sensing danger, Loi desperately tried to avoid her. Meanwhile, Shinfa had insisted on sharing Loi's tent to protect him during the night. Tao tracked Loi's ki and nearly got hit by a throwing knife Shinfa had launched. The two women burst out arguing loudly, creating chaos. Seizing the moment, Loi slipped away to boast to Ambach. The prince admitted Loi was truly lucky with two women vying for his attention. Even Grimo agreed Loi was irresistibly charming, but Ambach warned him to be careful. Angry women were a force to be reckoned with. Sure enough, the two women's anger exploded, and they knocked out the entire group of guards. Tao claimed she had to repair a temple shrine, but Shinfa chased her off. Ambach insisted Tao stay to keep watch, since she could detect nearby ki energy. Just then, a giant wolf known as Lang Hung appeared, making guards panic. Shinfa told Loi to hide while she took on the beast. As the battle raged, Grimo noticed something strange about a ruined temple in the distance. Tao unleashed a powerful ki strike, pushing the wolf back, but it wasn't enough to defeat it. Prince Ambach joined the fight, wielding his enhanced sword to boost his magic. He unleashed a blazing fireball that left everyone in awe and cooked the wolf thoroughly. Ambach thanked Loi, crediting the enchanted sword for his newfound strength. Grimo recalled the ruined temple carried a dark seal, imprisoning an evil demon. Though the wolf seemed dead, a shadowy curse revived it and summoned reinforcements. Suddenly, a demon named Pazuzu emerged from the wolf's mouth, declaring vengeance against humans who destroyed his family. Pazuzu commanded the monsters to annihilate every human nearby. Despite relentless fighting by Ambach and Tao, the monsters healed instantly. Ambach suspected their regeneration came from Pazuzu. Grimo, familiar with the demon, knew Pazuzu could manipulate magic's nature to control the wolves who believed him their mother. In the distant ruins, a dark seal held back a fierce evil. The wolf that seemed defeated was revived by a malevolent force, summoning a horde of monsters that shocked everyone. From the wolf's mouth emerged a demon named Pazuzu, who declared vengeance for his family harmed by humans long ago. Pazuzu commanded his monstrous legion to annihilate all humans in their path. Though Anbei and Tao fought relentlessly, the monsters healed instantly. Anbei realized their regeneration stemmed from Pazuzu's power. Grimo, familiar with Pazuzu, knew the demon's terrifying ability to alter magic's nature and control the wolf pack, who believed Pazuzu to be their mother. The battlefield had become a haunting symphony of dark magic and unyielding fury. If Pazuzu isn't destroyed, the situation will spiral into chaos. But Loi wants Grimo to teach him how to alter the very nature of magic, not to fight. Meanwhile, Xfar is boiling with frustration, just standing by and doing nothing. Pazuzu laughs like a madman, mocking humans as weaklings, even ridiculing Xfar and Loi. Seems like fear made him deflect his anger instead. That was enough to ignite Xfar's fury. She asked Loi's permission to teach this demon a lesson. First, Xfar insulted Pazuzu's family, calling them filthy rags, emitting foul, toxic stench so unbearable, it forced Prince Loi to endure it. Unforgivable. Without hesitation, Exfa pushed her sword forward, ready to strike down any monster. Pazuzu only sneered, mocking her resolve. He boasted that no matter how many limbs she cut off, the pack of wolves would never die. He would endlessly channel magic to heal them, making them immortal. But Exfa laughed back in his face, telling him foul-mouthed braggarts should zip it. Her words stung deeply. Enraged, Pazuzu lunged, aiming to end Exfa's life. But she was faster, swiftly severing the wolf's limbs with deadly precision. Though Pazuzu could heal instantly, it came at a cost. His other monsters slowed, revealing he was focusing his magic to shield the wolf's body. Ambi sensed this and urged Sympha to unleash relentless attacks on Pazuzu, buying time for their team to regroup. Meanwhile, Grimo was still absorbed in explaining the magical technique of altering mana properties to young Loi. It was a complex art that Pazuzu mastered only after long toil, but Loi grasped it in mere minutes. Loi even conjured a fragrant flower that left Grimo awestruck. Back in the thick of battle, Sympha was getting battered by Pazuzu's relentless assault. Seeing her strikes not landing fully, Sympha borrowed Loi's enchanted sword to amplify her power. The moment she held the rune-etched blade, tears of joy welled up. This sword was precious to Loi. Pazuzu, threatened by Loi's importance to Sympha, threatened to sever Loi into many pieces, but it was a ruse. Suddenly, Pazuzu lunged, trying to bite Sympha, assuming she was down, but there she stood alive and terrifying, ready to make him regret his move. Sympha summoned a second enchanted sword, slicing the wolf high into the air under the silver moonlight. Now wielding twin blades, Sympha unleashed her clan's ultimate techniques, starting with the soaring twin dragons, and then the descending falcon strike, razor-sharp moves that Pazuzu couldn't withstand. Closing in, she rained down merciless slashes that tore the wolf's body apart, finally delivering him to the ground with the deadly twin tiger fangs technique. Though her fighting style was a bit flashy, no one could deny Sympha was beyond cool. Meanwhile, Loi perfectly mimicked Sympha's stance using his mana-altering skill. Sympha approached Pazuzu, forcing him to lick Loi's sword as punishment for daring to threaten his friend. Despite being overwhelmed by Sympha's assault, Pazuzu refused to yield. He exhaled a dark, poisonous aura that sent a chill through Sympha, making her uneasy. On this side, Ambi and Thao successfully subdued the remaining monsters, but Prince Ambi and his soldiers were knocked out cold by Pazuzu's toxic breath. Sympha herself was drained, weakened by the noxious air. Pazuzu, furious from being pummeled so relentlessly, sprouted wings all over and unleashed a powerful punch that sent Sympha flying toward the lake. Ambi woke up but was powerless to help Sympha, overwhelmed by the unbearable stench. Yet even after that brutal blow, Sympha showed no fear of Pazuzu mocking him fiercely for his horrid breath. Then Pazuzu, burning with rage, was ready to finish off Sympha, but Thao bravely blocked his vicious kick. Now, Pazuzu had a new rival, the girl wielding Qigong Sympha. Though exhausted, she masked her pain, insisting she didn't need Thao's help. But no sooner had she spoken than Sympha collapsed. She'd been too close to the toxic miasma. Pazuzu exhaled. He warned that anyone who breathed in this foul air would be utterly controlled. Yet somehow Thao remained clear-headed, sparking Pazuzu's curiosity about her secret. Though Thao launched a timely kick, Pazuzu dodged with unnatural speed and caught her leg. Only then did he realize Thao had mastered her breathing rhythm to resist the poisonous gas. When Pazuzu stuck out his grotesque tongue, Thao didn't hesitate. She slammed her fist into his mouth. Then, with a fierce move called Thunderquake Smash, she sent him hurtling into the lake. Seizing the moment to reset her breath, Thao prepared for the next strike, but a beast controlled by Pazuzu snapped at her. Pazuzu, boasting of his clan's handsome warriors, tried to lure Thao into his ranks, then unleashed the toxic gas to subdue her, forcing the beast to swallow her whole. After crushing his opponents, Pazuzu bragged about slaughtering the wolf pack's parents and controlling them with his toxic breath. Loi had to admit Pazuzu was a true monster. But when he heard Loi's voice, Pazuzu flinched. Someone was still clear-headed amid the gas. And Loi wasn't alone. Beside him was a demon with a goofy appearance. Grimo, hearing himself called dumb, was stung, but as a demon himself he knew Pazuzu was beyond help. Meanwhile, Pazuzu commanded the wolf pack to attack Loi. Loi saw this as a chance to experiment with altering his magic's nature. He conjured a blooming garden, fooling the wolves into thinking they saw their lost parents. Soon, the pack was entranced, much to Pazuzu's shock. Loi then ordered a wolf to spit out Thao, freeing her. Pazuzu unleashed his toxic miasma again, aiming to control the wolves, but instead they turned on him furious over their parents' murder. Watching the wolves attack in coordinated packs, Loi was deeply impressed. Pazuzu bitten repeatedly flew into a rage, ruthlessly beating the wolves back. Turning his fury to Loi, Pazuzu taunted that his magic was useless against demons like him. Loi recalled Grimo saying the exact same thing before, and now he would unleash some of his true power, so Pazuzu could taste defeat. Grimo once wondered why his magic didn't affect Loi. The truth was that all demon skills paled before Loi's immense mana. In fact, Pazuzu was just a test subject for Loi's unleashed spells. Now, aware, Pazuzu realized Loi was the real demon. Loi trapped him in multiple magical barriers to prevent escape. Pazuzu understood Loi's intent and fled desperately, but Loi's spellcasting speed was overwhelming. Each time Pazuzu tried to fly away, Loi erected a barrier blocking his path. As Loi cast his spells, he explained to Grimo that he could wield 20 spells at once, and with Grimo's help even more. When Grimo slipped into Loi's hand, Pazuzu's fate was sealed. Though Pazuzu dove underwater and swam like a superhero, Loi's barriers relentlessly pursued him. Every narrowly dodged attack made Pazuzu feel invincible, until he couldn't dodge anymore, trapped within Loi's colossal multidimensional dome. Grimo, exhausted from chanting alongside Loi outside, began recounting Pazuzu's sins, first the slaughter of the wolf pack's parents and other monsters, then using those creatures to test his own strength. Loi prepared to test his new spell, Rapid Magic, on Pazuzu. Seeing this, Pazuzu begged for negotiation, but Loi remained cold, chanting spell after spell. He unleashed hundreds of elemental magics, overwhelming Grimo until he fainted. Loi even set these spells to repeat for 30 minutes inside the barrier, a shimmering rainbow of magic intertwined with Pazuzu's agonized screams. When Pazuzu finally fell silent, Loi checked if he was still alive, only to feel a twinge of disappointment that Pazuzu had perished so quickly. Loi then withdrew his barrier, allowing Pazuzu to speak his final words. Seeing that everyone else had regained consciousness, Loi rushed off to boast about the battle's events, leaving only Grimo behind to share a quiet moment with Pazuzu. Grimo revealed he was now happily living with Loi, steadily building power to one day exact revenge on Pazuzu. Hearing this, Pazuzu entrusted all his remaining mana to Grimo to help fulfill this vow, though even Grimo believed that day was far in the future. Meanwhile, Loi explained to the others that a mage named Robert had slain the demon. Luckily, they believed his story, so the events remained secret. Upon returning to the capital, the people flooded the streets to celebrate Prince Umbei's victory over the monsters. Yet despite their cheers, the crowd looked down on Loi. Shinfa shot them a glare that silenced their scorn. Arriving at the palace, the king congratulated Umbei on defeating the beasts and demons. He then wondered where the two adventurers, Tao and Robert, were. It turned out Tao had set off to chase Robert, believing he was real. Umbei insisted that Loi was the true hero of this journey, crediting the enchanted weapons Loi provided for saving everyone from the 7 monsters. After dispatching the other monsters, Pazuzu decided to test his own strength by using them. This time, Loi would use him to test his high-speed magical techniques. Pazuzu begged Loi for a truce, but no matter how loudly he screamed, Loi remained cold and focused, chanting spells relentlessly. He unleashed hundreds of elemental spells, overwhelming Grimo to the point of collapse. Loi even set these spells on a continuous loop for 30 minutes inside a magical barrier, a dazzling 7-colored rainbow of magic, pierced by Pazuzu's agonized screams. When Pazuzu finally fell silent, Loi questioned if he was still alive. Disappointed, he realized that after only 5 minutes, Pazuzu was already out of the fight. So Loi withdrew his barrier, letting Pazuzu speak his final words. But Loi noticed everyone else had woken up, so he hurriedly began bragging to them about what had happened. Only Grimo stayed behind to talk with Pazuzu. Grimo admitted he was living happily alongside Loi, now steadily building power each day to someday exact revenge. Hearing this, Pazuzu entrusted all his magic to Grimo to help fulfill that wish. Yet Grimo knew with this small power, revenge was still a distant dream. Meanwhile, Loi explained to everyone that a mage named Robert had defeated the demon. Luckily, they believed him wholeheartedly, so Loi kept the rest of the story secret. Returning to the capital, crowds flooded the streets cheering for Prince An, who had defeated the monsters. But the people there still looked down on Loi, so Xfar shot them a glare that silenced the crowd. Just arriving at the palace, the king congratulated Anne on his victory over the monsters and the demons' defeat. Then he wondered where the two adventurers, Tho and Robert, were. It turned out Thao believed Robert was real and had set off to pursue him. But Anne told the king that Loy was the true hero of the journey because the weapons Loy had enhanced saved everyone from the dangers of the 7 monsters. The king then offered Loy a place on the throne's succession list. Loy was humble, never boasting, making him an ideal candidate to become king. The king warned Anne that granting this might create another rival for the throne. But Anne replied that as long as the kingdom prospered, he didn't care about becoming king himself. The king happily agreed, allowing Loy to compete for the throne. Yet Loy stood up and flatly refused. He had no time for kingship. Since birth, Loy preferred carefree play and magical research above all else. From now on, he would have a new friend, the wolf he met yesterday, who surely liked him enough to leave the forest and follow him. Seeing the fluffy fur, Loy couldn't help but say it felt amazing to touch. Grimmo, imitating the wolf's fluff, tried to fit in. Just then, Xfar arrived, so Loy hid Grimmo inside the wolf's fur. He told Xfar the wolf's name was Zero because of its pure white fur. Now that he had a new beast companion, Loy wanted to teach it everything. Xfar believed only a master beast tamer could command such a creature, usually using magic to control beasts. But she trusted Loy taming beasts would be a breeze for him. Grimmo agreed, calling Loy a crazy magic nerd for refusing the throne just to chase his passion. Anne and the king both saw Loy as a modest prince uninterested in status, but they hoped that someday he would find the will to become king. From that day on, Loy began training Beast Zero alongside Xfar and Sho. The wolf quickly learned simple commands like sit, stand and bark. Now Loy wanted 132. He tried commanding a series of magical commands, but Zero acted like a clueless puppy. Sympha realized Loy needed a true beast-taming expert and remembered someone with vast experience. She invited Loy to journey to a place called Ali's garden. However, Loy wasn't exactly thrilled about going there. They arrived at a garden filled with many animals, prompting Grimmo to wonder who Ali could be to hold such power. Loy explained that Ali was his older sister and the 6th princess of the kingdom. She loved animals deeply, even raising monsters. Just then, Ali rushed over and hugged Loy tightly, after days apart, even planting a kiss that knocked him out cold. Even Eris Ali's maid was annoyed by the princess's passionate greetings. Ali admitted that Loy's pet Zero was incredibly adorable. Sympha thought the princess might not truly understand magic or how to communicate with monsters, but Loy believed in Ali's abilities and wanted to see her own pet. Ali revealed her beast Liru, a horse-like creature, a high-level species related to wolves. Loy was stunned. He couldn't sense Liru's presence through his magic. To make things more surprising, Liru had stolen Shvar's headband without anyone noticing. It turned out Ali had commanded Liru in advance to carry out a series of actions silently without a single gesture. Loy's curiosity soared, so he asked Ali to share some of her training secrets. Ali smiled and said the key was love, leaving everyone speechless. She continued explaining that with love, any monster could understand its master. The moment she spoke, the garden's beasts swarmed to her side, but Ali grew annoyed when Eris joked that someday the princess might become monster bait. Loy believed that with love he could train his pet too. Seeing Loy's interest in love, Sympha fantasized about dedicating herself to the prince someday. After observing closely, Loy realized Ali used magic to telepathically connect with animals. She unconsciously linked minds using magic, so instead of commands, she only needed to imagine communicating with them. Immediately, Loy tried telepathically connecting with Zero, signaling it to run 3 laps and bark once. And just like his thoughts, Zero obeyed perfectly. It was a breathtaking moment, proof that love and mental connection could tame even the wildest beasts. This breakthrough wasn't just magic, it was a dance of hearts and minds. Loy's journey to mastering beast taming had taken a new profound turn, one where passion and connection mattered more than force. If you've ever wrestled with understanding or connecting to someone, maybe this tale reminds us all that true bonds are forged through empathy, not control. And if you're lost between choices in life, may this story remind you, even a small light can guide the way. Thanks for experiencing this journey with me. When Loy succeeded in training the pet, Eris couldn't help but exclaim that he was a genius in telepathy. But the princess firmly insisted it was pure love for animals. Loy also admitted that it took true empathy to win over them. Overjoyed, Ali embraced Loi, grateful that he had truly understood her. After the pet training journey, Zinfa was eager to practice swordsmanship, which made Loi anxious. Even when Prince Amb needed Loi, Zinfa was ready to compete for his attention. Loi chose to follow Ambi, disliking sword training. It turned out 4th Prince Diane was seeking Loi to question him about something. While the pets practiced swimming, Diane confronted Loi about embedding magic into a sword. Distrusting Loi's abilities, Diane demanded a demonstration. According to Ambi, Diane had studied blacksmithing abroad since childhood and was fascinated by magic that empowers weapons. Before his 2 older brothers, Loi used soul essence to create ink, carefully painting enchanting runes onto the sword's blade. Each intricate pattern was drawn with meticulous precision. Yet Diane suspected Loi was a trickster fooling the smiths. But upon seeing the sword, Diane was speechless. He couldn't fathom the magic Loi had woven into it. The sword was lighter, yet far stronger. Proud of Loi, Diane believed the two could forge the world's most powerful enchanted blade. Diane's dream was to embed magic directly during forging, convinced that a master blacksmith combined with a skilled mage would create the ultimate magic sword. Inspired, Loi accepted Diane as his boss and began working at the forge. From that day forward, Loi was always at Diane's side, forging swords. Diane eagerly awaited the day they'd forge a blade that could ignite flames with a single slash. After much crafting, Loi was ready to embed the soul essence talisman into molten steel, but having overloaded it with magic caused the steel to shatter. Outside, Zinfa and Ciro watched Loi diligently. Diane invited both to assist in the forge for convenience. Feeling discouraged after repeated failures, Diane encouraged Loi, saying success was just around the corner. However, Diane let slip that he had bought cheap soul essence from outside sources. Loi decided to use water magic to filter the soul essence. Indeed, the essential red magic powder was missing. Diane couldn't acquire it himself since he had never hunted monsters. Loi realized he'd have to secretly venture into dungeons to obtain the red powder. Zinfa offered to join him on the hunt, but Loi declined, fearing exposure of his escape from the royal palace. After the previous monster incident, Zinfa petitioned the king to allow Loi to explore dungeons for knowledge. Reluctantly, Loi left the forge to follow Zinfa to the Adventurers Guild. It was his first time there and he was amazed. The receptionist, Katerina, reminded Loi to register with his name and address. Next, Loi had to touch a crystal orb to assess his abilities. In a past life, Loi had faced this test and feared the orb might explode now. He restrained his magic as much as possible. The results showed all his stats were low, except magic scoring an A. Other adventurers mocked him as a lowly, ranky kid, but Katerina saw his talent. His magic rivaled that of the Silver Sword Princess, a legendary adventurer who had conquered countless dungeons. The other adventurers were outraged at the idea of a rank E matching the Silver Sword Princess, calling it absurd. Zinfa ignored the jeers and told Katerina to promptly assign missions. Seeing this, the guild leader tried to recruit Zinfa, but was swiftly cut down when she sliced off his beard. Katerina revealed that Zinfa was the Silver Sword Princess herself, and the guild fell silent in fear. At that moment, Thao arrived to accept a mission and spotted Zinfa immediately. Zinfa quickly took Loi home for safety. Thao confided that she had been searching dungeons for Robert, but found no trace and now wanted to get to know Prince Am to ease her loneliness. Zinfa cared little for romance, demanding Thao return Loi's cloak. After a brief struggle, Zinfa reclaimed Loi's cloak. Loi admired Zinfa, recognizing her as a skilled adventurer, though she admitted to a few questionable actions like dealing with the Assassin's Guild. The three ventured into a dungeon to hunt monsters. After a day, they successfully collected dungeon rewards. Meanwhile, Ambi arrived at Diane's forge with urgent news of an impending rebellion in the capital. Diane panicked and wanted to speed up sword creation, but Ambi told him not to worry about war. His real goal was to strengthen Diane's bond with Loi. Diane needed to stay calm and focus on research to produce results that would save many lives. Just then, Loi's group returned with dungeon spoils. That night, they crafted the first magic sword successfully. The next morning, Diane tested the sword at the training grounds. A single swing unleashed a massive explosion, vaporizing everything nearby. The sword's power was overwhelming. They named the blade after Loi and Diane. Exhausted from a day of forging, Loi happily collapsed into bed. Because the initial sword was too powerful, Loy had to reduce the fireball spell's damage. He also noticed Amb's urgency in sword crafting, suspecting secrets were being kept. In the dead of night, Loy sensed someone sneaking into the palace, a mysterious cloaked woman. He rushed to catch the intruder and created a barrier to trap her. After exchanging evening greetings, Loy tried to learn the assassin's intentions. She revealed herself and unleashed a poisonous scent that paralyzed opponents. Loy used purification magic, but it failed. The assassin then declared that no one could cleanse her poison. Usually purification magic would text cuts off here, so no further content to rewrite. Lloyd's ability to cure every poison he's ever encountered proves this toxin is something truly rare his first time facing it. He believes only those cursed could wield such venom. The girl admits she's been cursed from birth by poison itself, even earning the notorious nickname Ren the Poison Butterfly from the underworld. With a single strike, Jen shattered Lloyd's protective barrier, leaving him stunned. Before departing, Tram gently reassured Loy not to fret. He'd only inhaled a trace of poison. It wasn't life-threatening, but the pain would linger for days ahead. Loy, unbothered, shifted into using his chi to steadily heal the toxin within. In fact, he could have captured Jen then and there, but instead he let her go, choosing to follow her back to the assassin's lair. Turns out Sinfar had already tipped him off beforehand. Though Ren is skilled at concealment, Lloyd senses every subtle movement she makes, so he quickly sets off, tailing her to the Assassin Guild's base. Sinfa wakes to follow Lloyd, but is too late. Meanwhile, the 6 Assassin Guild members are absorbing Jen's report. The royal palace is mass-producing magical swords. They urge swift action, but a man named Gali reminds R not to act as leader when the group lacks a true guide. Their conversation cuts short as they sense Lloyd's presence. Knowing he's been detected, Lloyd boldly leaps down to greet them. Ren can't believe Lloyd remains lucid despite her poison. Realizing the base is compromised, the group vows not to let Lloyd leave alive. But Lloyd stands unfazed. He dispels the barrier to trade blows with them. First, he assumes the stance of the 100 Flowers fist, reminiscent of Tao's style. Seeing Lloyd wield martial arts, a fighter named Babylon lunges forward to engage. Babylon's lightning speed forces Lloyd onto the defensive repeatedly. From Babylon's agile moves, Lloyd deduces he's incredibly flexible in combat, his body like rubber, able to strike unexpectedly. Babylon reveals he himself is cursed, explaining his strange physique. Before Lloyd can ponder this, a man named Crow sneaks behind him, chanting a spell that weighs Lloyd down. Just like Thao, when Lloyd displayed his martial arts, a man named Babylon charged forward to confront him. Babylon's moves were lightning fast, forcing Lloyd into constant defense. Observing Babylon's fluid movements, Lloyd judged him to be incredibly agile in battle, his body as flexible as rubber, capable of launching surprise attacks. Babylon introduced himself as someone cursed, which explained his unusual body. Before Lloyd could react further, a man named Crow slipped behind him, chanting a spell that weighed down Lloyd's body. But Lloyd used a strengthening body spell to dodge Gali's thunderous punch. However, Gali possessed the thread curse, binding Lloyd tightly to him. Struggling against the unyielding threads, Lloyd had to shed his clothes to break free. Yet Taria closed in, swinging her sword relentlessly. She bore the wound curse, enabling her to transfer injuries from herself to Lloyd. Surprisingly, Lloyd felt no pain. He was fascinated by her power. After Taria's sword dance, the introductions between both sides were complete. Taria assumed Lloyd was trembling with fear by now, but Lloyd hadn't even flinched. He healed his wounds instantly. Then, he forged 2 swords, replicating Shvar's techniques. The moment Shvar's silhouette appeared, the Assassin Guild panicked, haunted by her past terror. As Lloyd charged forward, the group scattered to dodge, each stepping aside swiftly. Lloyd's first target was Babylon, who took a harsh beating, but survived thanks to his stretchy body that absorbed some impact. While Lloyd was distracted, Crow unleashed a spell at him, but it accidentally struck Gali, sending him flying out of sight. Lloyd then used Shvar's sword style to face Crow, starting with the Twin Dragon's ascending move and finishing with the Flying Swallow's descent. Still, Lloyd worried about Crow sensing his pain after the attack. After dealing with Crow, Lloyd charged at Taria. Although aware she could share damage, he didn't hesitate to strike her. Finally, Lloyd unleashed Thao's 100 Flowers fist, slamming Gali into the wall with tremendous force. Now only Ren remained trembling after witnessing Loi's overwhelming power. Yet she still urged Jen to show off her poison skills. Gali rushed in, warning that Jen couldn't control her poison. Once unleashed, everyone nearby would be affected. Loi realized none of them could manage the curse's power, so he resolved to lend a hand. First, Loi dodged Gully's grasp and suddenly appeared behind him, landing a solid blow. Enraged Ren charged at Loi, attacking fiercely, but Gali stopped her, explaining that Loi was unharmed. In fact, Gali had gained control over the curse inside him, no longer spewing toxins uncontrollably. It turned out Loi had cast a spell to help regulate their magic energy. Though it was his first try, Loi was thrilled. It worked, except his pants got shredded, so he just tossed them aside. From then on, Loi helped the assassin group control their curses. After receiving his spell, they could finally master their cursed powers. Crow could talk without accidentally casting spells. Taria could manage the shared damage, and Babylon's body moved normally. Ren, though happy, still looked a bit uneasy. After all, Loi's touch earlier meant she could now wear clothes without fear of spreading poison. Seeing Loi lose his pants, Taria quickly prepared him a fresh outfit, and the group threw a grand feast to thank him. Meanwhile, Gali had something important to discuss with Loi. The whole team had agreed to ask Loi to lead them, but Loi refused outright. He was busy researching magic and didn't even want to hear Gali's long-winded speech. However, when Jay, their leader with teleportation skills, arrived, Loi's attention sharpened. Before Gali could finish, Jay teleported back to base and greeted everyone. Jay couldn't control his teleportation curse and had been traveling the world, even bringing souvenirs back for the group. This time he returned with important news. He intended to create a symbol for the Assassin Guild coins to mark their missions. From now on, they'd take on secret tasks the Adventurer Guild couldn't handle. After each job, they'd leave a coin behind, signaling their fight for world peace. Everyone agreed enthusiastically. Finally, they no longer needed to hide, but Gali still struggled to control his curse and was abruptly teleported away, leaving Loi disappointed he hadn't witnessed Dee's teleportation power. Gali then told the story of Lord Lotus' rebellion. Just as he finished, Jay sent a letter via teleportation prompting the group to prepare for departure. When Sinfa rushed into the base, it was deserted, except for a note stating Loi had gone with the Assassin Guild to Lord Lodos's mansion. AMBC read the letter, bewildered by the tense relations between Salem Kingdom and Lodos. He suspected the guild had allied with Lodos to capture Loi as a hostage. To make matters worse, Sinfa found Loi's sticky clothes left behind, sparking fears that Loi was being tortured. Furious, Ambi and Shva vowed to rescue him immediately. Earlier, Jay had apologized via teleportation letter for his long silence and revealed that the Lodos ruling class was prepping for war, yet Jay had defeated them and become the new lord. Now he invited everyone to a feast. Although everyone was happy, Loi sensed something was off. He recognized the Assassin Guild's badge pinned on the letter. Upon hearing Jay's message, the assassin team wanted to head to Lodos immediately. Jen asked Loi to accompany them to cure Dee's curse, but Loi pointed out a suspicious detail. The letter had appeared suddenly on the table, perfectly teleported. Teleportation was a difficult magic no one fully understood. If Dee had truly mastered it so precisely, that was big news. Everyone agreed and rejoiced. Loi accepted the request, eager to witness Dee's teleportation firsthand. Janan felt uneasy, but Loi reassured her he'd handle everything. After seeing Loi's kindness, Janan developed feelings for him. Loi then swiftly transported the group to Lodos at breakneck speed. In no time, they landed in the Lost Territory, ready to meet Dee. Even a short flight left them all dizzy. While the others rested, Ren decided to venture into the forest in search of food. Babylon revealed Ren grew up in the woods and wanted to show Loi her skills. Since childhood, Ren had accidentally killed her loved ones, with her poisonous curse forcing her to live alone until Jay brought her to the Assassin Guild. Everyone was wary of Ren's fierce demeanor, but Jay promised to guide her. Dee was so obsessed with Ren's poison that he fainted from inhaling too much. Still, Dee decided to keep Ren with them, and the group happily divided tasks to care for her. Gali took on her education, Babylon handled cooking, while Taria and Jay designed clothes for Ren. After some time, they made Jinan a black outfit that suppressed her poison, allowing her to live freely without harming others. Jay also gifted Ren a hairband that moved her to tears of joy. Because of this, Jenin always saw Jay as her brother, and the 6 members of the guild considered each other family. While everyone rested, Ren decided to venture into the forest to hunt for food. Babylon revealed that Ren grew up in the wilderness and wanted to show off her skills to Loi. Since childhood, Ren had accidentally killed her relatives with a poisonous curse. From then on, Genin lived alone in the forest until Jay found and brought her to the Assassin Guild. Seeing Ren's fierce expression, everyone grew worried. But Jay encouraged Ren, promising to guide her in mastering her powers. Da was so overwhelmed by Ren's poison that he fainted after sniffing it too much. Still, Da decided to let Ren live among them. The group happily divided tasks. Gali took charge of education, Babylon handled cooking, while Taria and others, Jay took it upon himself to design outfits for the little girl. After some time, they crafted a sleek black suit for Genin, capable of suppressing poison. From then on, Genin could live freely among others without fear of harming them. Jay also gifted Ren a hairband that brought tears of joy to her eyes. That's why Zen always saw Jay as his big brother, and the 6 of them considered each other an unbreakable family. Hearing their story, Loi's heart ached with a new desire to meet Jay. GMO was stunned to see Loi care so deeply about someone else. Soon after, Jen prepared a hot pot that looked more like pig feed, yet insisted it was the best meal on earth. Taria quickly reminded Jen that Loi was a prince he couldn't possibly eat such food. But Loi and Grimo devoured it enthusiastically, having survived far worse in their past lives. Inspired, everyone tried it and agreed it really was delicious. Amid the warm scene, Ren silently wished Jay could be there sharing this moment. Previously, Jay had warned the group that the Adventurer Guild was considering dropping their manhunt. Hearing this, everyone's resolve tightened, knowing their fate hung in the balance. Jay confessed he had always lied to himself, pretending to be a wanderer. In truth, Jay was the 3rd son of the Lord ruling Lodos. Jay had joined the group only to use them. Now, Lodos was under the cruel reign of Jay's family, on the brink of war. But Jay himself despaired conflict, which is why he needed everyone's strength. Hearing this, the group was stunned to discover Jay's true heritage, yet no one blamed Jay. Everyone understood that each soul walks their own path with purpose, so they stood ready to support Day in defying his family's tyranny. Deeply moved by their loyalty, Day decided to face this battle alone. He couldn't risk their safety or freedom by dragging them into danger. Though cursed and wounded, Jay had found joy in their company, but now it was time to return to Lodos and end the looming war. More than that, Jay dreamed of becoming Lodos's lord, and he entrusted the group with maintaining the Assassin's Guild's honor, vowing to reunite with them once he claimed his place. Moved to tears by Day's story, Grimo couldn't hold back her emotions, while Lois, stuffed from the feast, simply crashed into sleep. Everyone was speechless watching Lois sleep, yet still maintain a protective barrier. At that moment, Ren suggested leaving Loi to rest while the rest scouted the manor. Jay suspected his letter was sent under duress, so they needed to investigate. The group agreed, letting Loi sleep on the grass, but Grimo felt uneasy, fearing for their safety. She insisted on accompanying them to ensure nothing went wrong. Arriving at the manor, they were greeted by an extravagant noble feast devoid of any hostility. The Assassin's Guild wanted to enter cautiously, but Grimo preferred to report back to Loi first. Just then, a dwarf spotted the group and, surprisingly, invited all 5 inside to join the party. After all, it was their first time attending such an event. Everyone was awkward, unsure how to act. Grimo considered returning to tell Loi the situation, but Ren held her back, bursting with excitement to seek out Jay again. Soon, Jay appeared to greet them, and their joy was palpable. Finding the noble attire too stuffy, Jay quickly shifted into commoner's clothes, impressing everyone with his mastery over illusion magic. The crowd marvelled at Jay's effortless control, their minds buzzing with the promise of the battles and bonds yet to unfold. As Grimo teleported, he quickly reminded Ren to greet Jay after their long separation. But Ren was so overwhelmed with emotion that words failed her, only tears streamed endlessly down her cheeks. Yet the figure before Zen revealed his true form, a demon lord, accompanied by his minions. Using Crow's cursed power, he forced everyone to kneel before him, his curse so potent that no one dared lift their heads. Then, with a cruel grin, he allowed his minions to feast on the others, to absorb their curses. Seeing this, Grimo launched a desperate attack to help everyone escape, knowing full well the demon's deadly threat. But the demon swiftly teleported behind Grimo, delivering brutal kicks that sent him flying straight toward Loi, who was deep in sleep nearby. Startled by the loud noise, Loi woke up to see Grimo panicked, urgently reporting the chaos inside the mansion. Meanwhile, the group outside remained bewildered, struggling to grasp what was happening to Jay. Soon, they realized they were surrounded by demon parasites inhabiting human bodies, and the one possessing Jay introduced himself as Weir, hailing from across the sea. Weir's goal was clear: to steal Jay's teleportation power. Having fully taken over Jay's body, Weir could teleport with ease. He explained it took months to erase Jay's will, during which Jay suffered terribly under his torment. When Zen's anger flared, Weir coldly kicked her, dislodging her hairpin. Wire claimed Jay begged for his friends' lives, knowing Weir's target was those cursed with power. Yet Weir consumed Jay's mind, leaving only a sliver of consciousness. In a final act of defiance, Jay logged out, dragging Weir along, but Wire used his power to restore Jay, condemning him to a living hell. From that moment, Jay's spirit crumbled until it vanished completely. As Wire recounted this mockingly, the group seethed with rage, especially when he mimicked Jay's voice, deepening their fury. In a moment of heartbreak, Gua shattered the hairpin Day had given Zen. Then Wire permitted his minions to devour the Assassin Guild members, intending to absorb their cursed powers. But Grimo noticed a magical seal etched on Ren's arm and questioned her about its origin and purpose. Ren refused to betray her friends, holding her silence even in this life-or-death moment. Meanwhile, Gua kept pressing Ren about who cast the seal on her. Just then, Loi's protective barrier enveloped the assassins, stunning everyone. From above, Loi unleashed a devastating spell, striking Weir directly and creating a massive crater within the mansion. Loi then revealed to Gua that he was the very person Weir sought. The demons gawked at the overwhelming power Loi displayed. Ren, relieved and grateful, saw Loi had come to save her once more. After healing Ren's facial wounds, Loi urged everyone to flee quickly as the demons hungered for the cursed bodies. Though Ren resisted leaving, the group insisted to avoid hindering Loi's fight. Wire's minions, thinking their master was defeated, were shocked when he reappeared alive and obediently returned to his side. Wire declared that even the assassin's skill could not hide them from his reach, ordering his minions to capture them or die trying. But Loi stood firm, refusing to let them proceed, unleashing a powerful spell that scattered the minions in panic. The assassins watched in awe at Loi's overwhelming magical might. Now Loi was ready to punish Weir for daring to threaten his friends. Two of Weir's minions charged to distract Loi, while Weir struck through Loi's barrier with a sudden attack, catching him completely off guard. Unsure whether to take the hit or dodge, Loi chose to evade downward, causing the minions to be trapped by a sealing spell. Loi realized that those hit by the attack would have their hearts stop beating instantly. Grimo assessed Weir as a being capable of generating magical power, akin to Crow's curse, but far beyond Crow's level. Normal spells were blocked by Loi's barrier, but Weir's direct magic sliced through effortlessly. Fascinated by this raw power, Loi approached Weir and introduced himself as the Seventh Prince. Wire instantly recognized the name, the very person Jay had longed to meet. Loi's aim was to defeat Weir first, while Weir blamed Loi for letting the assassins escape bodies he coveted. Weir planned to claim Loi's body as compensation for his losses. After a brief exchange of blows to test each other's strength, the scene shifted to Thao demanding Katarina assign him a mission where he could team up with Gua, or failing that, with Loi. Katarina panicked at the thought that even a kid like Loi was on Thao's radar. Meanwhile, Grimo earnestly urged Loi to flee, warning that Weir's demonic power was terrifying, making human magic seem like mere ripples. Ordinary magic can be blocked by barriers, but direct magical power like Weir's pierces through effortlessly. Loi's curiosity sparked at witnessing such raw strength. Meanwhile, Jay's followers scattered in panic, disappointing him with their uselessness. According to Grimo, demons rank by power, the fleeing crowd belonged to the lowest M rank. Grimo stood at rank 3, but Weir towered above even rank 1, belonging to the royal elite of the demon realm. Wire's power was a catastrophic force. Even hundreds of first-rank demons couldn't match him. Grimo warned Loi to keep his distance from Weir, but Loi's fascination only grew. Determined, Loi approached Weir and introduced himself as the Seventh Prince. Wire immediately recalled the Seventh Prince was someone Jay had longed to meet. Loi, eager to meet Jay himself, knew he had to defeat Weir first. Weir accused Loi of allowing the Assassin Guild to escape bodies he craved. So Weir planned to claim Loi's body to compensate for his losses. After a fierce exchange, they decided to trade blows for fun. Meanwhile, Thao demanded Katarina assign him a mission where he could team up with the formidable G, or if none existed, to work alongside Loi. Katarina panicked if even a kid like Loi was a target for Tao. What hope did anyone have? Grimo sincerely urged Loi to flee, warning Weir's demonic power was terrifying. To Weir, human magic was but ripples while he dwelled in the ocean's deepest darkness, untouched by light. Weir showcased his might by shattering Loi's barrier, though its thickness slowed him down. He then conjured countless spears and launched them, relentlessly forcing Loi to dodge around the castle. Each time the barrier cracked, Loi quickly rebuilt it, standing firm against Weir's storm of attacks. Wherever Loi flew, Weir's spears followed. But Weir wouldn't let Loi keep running. He teleported behind him and delivered a crushing kick, warping Loi's barrier. Then Weir unleashed a deadly drill attack from behind, but Loi swiftly erected a stone statue as a shield. Spectators marveled at this epic duel between Loi and Weir. Suddenly, Weir's minions spotted the assassin guild nearby and gave chase. Gali reminded Babylon to climb outside first to clear the path for the group. Meanwhile, Grimo was so scared he burst into tears at being forced into Loi's battle. Grimo told Loi he could freely use Jay's teleportation powers. Although Jay once struggled to control it, demons could wield any ability with the right body. Nga advised Loi to give up before Weir fully possessed the Assassin Guild's bodies, for Weir's strength was monstrous. Continued, Loi reassured Grimo that he could freely use Jay's instantaneous teleportation powers. Though Jay once struggled to control teleportation, for demons possessing a body meant mastering all cursed powers with ease. Nga advised Loi to give up, warning that the enemy might seize the assassins' bodies because Loi couldn't dodge the next strike. No sooner had she spoken than Gua teleported a spear behind Loi's back, leaving him no chance to evade. He teleported multiple spears, turning Loi into a porcupine of deadly spikes. Below, the demon horde charged fiercely at the assassins, demanding their bodies. But Gali crafted a special sticky glue that halted their movement. Crow then cast a binding spell, tightening the glue's grip, while Babylon strained to open the city gate. As the gate lifted, he shouted for everyone to flee quickly. Yet as Crow and Jen stepped outside, the demons flexed their muscles, struggling to break free from the glue. Seeing this, Taria resolved to stay behind and buy time, using her healing-sharing ability to cripple the demons' legs. She urged the group to run towards the forest and erase their presence. However, the demons recovered swiftly, forcing Taria to wield her sword again, severing their legs. Though Jen wanted to stay and fight alongside them, Gali pushed her out and slammed the gate shut. Gali chose to remain and assist Taria, knowing she couldn't handle the demons alone. To vanquish their foes, Gali told Taria to unleash her ultimate technique. The demons hesitated in terror, as Taria prepared to sacrifice her life to annihilate them all at once. When the horde charged, Gali's sticky glue halted their advance. Ren watched the sacrifices in agony, remembering their vow to savor freedom together, yet powerless as Jen could only watch two comrades fall. Then, with a final strike, Taria ended the entire enemy force. Meanwhile, Wisher mocked the assassin's last efforts, convinced none would escape his grasp. He even pitied Loi, who had sacrificed himself before anyone else. But Wisher's realization was chilling. The figure he stabbed was only rubble. Loi had cleverly counterattacked with Grimo's sword, but Wisher teleported away just in time. Issa was stunned to see Loi using a clay double as a decoy, now wielding a mysterious sword. Loi admitted he was at a disadvantage, so the prince requested Gua to teleport elsewhere to avoid complications. Suddenly, the prince's forces arrived, launching a relentless inferno into the city. The demons caught off guard were instantly charred. Before anyone could grasp what was happening, Exfar wielded a sword and the gates were shattered by a storm of blades, but when Prince Ambi entered, he still believed his younger brother Loi was kidnapped. Driven by desperation, Ambi commanded his army to storm inside, swearing to find Loi at any cost. Meanwhile, Thao seethed with frustration. In this bustling town where couples thrived, she suddenly overheard whispers that Prince Ambe was racing towards Lodos to rescue Loi. Without a second thought, she dashed, their heart pounding, to aid the handsome warriors. The demon clan couldn't withstand the roaring flames and plunged into the waters below. Ren Hopeful thought the second prince had come to her rescue. But before that, Armbi and Schiffer had gathered the Assassin's Guild for interrogation, plunging them into deep confusion. Schiffer suspected the assassins had kidnapped Loi and demanded they reveal the prince's whereabouts, threatening that silence or lies meant a life lost every minute. Fear gripped the assassins, and under pressure they confessed Loi was battling inside the mansion. Because Loi had once warned not to reveal his strength, Babylon urged R to keep secret that Loi was fighting the final boss. Zen quickly claimed that Loi was just wrestling with a mere minnow demon. Thio, sensing deceit, prepared to execute the first assassin. But before that, Ambi demanded to know who dared touch Loi's treasured undergarment. When he learned it was the prankster, Andao Chok Ambe and Shifa bristled with rage. Zen stood up, confessing her deep concern for Loi, who fought to protect the Assassin Guild's family. Ren pleaded with Thio to trust Zen's words, and Ali, trusting her pet's instincts, believed Zen too. Just then, a reckless demon charged forward, but Ali's timely intervention saved the day. Now the demons had regrouped, forcing Ambi to ask Xfar to rescue Loi. Yet Ren stopped Xfar, insisting Loi was battling a weakling who needed no help. At this moment, Weir's magic shattered part of the bridge, blocking any entry. The demons had fallen into the water and struggled to swim ashore. Loi, relieved by the solitude, prepared for the next clash with Weir. Yet a flicker of worry lingered were his friend safe below, and Ambi ordered his soldiers to unleash magical sword strikes, setting the demons ablaze. This fiery assault brought Loi peace of mind, letting him focus on his deadly duel. But the demons, resilient as ever, shrugged off weak spells, healing swiftly. They even begged Ambi to ignite a bigger blaze. These flames were mere sparks to them. Even Diane's fiery meteor spells couldn't scorch the demons to death. Facing a bleak fight, Ambi sought Xfar's aid, but when he turned, the maid was gone. Turns out Shifa was riding Sho's back, commanding the beast to leap straight into the mansion, even forcing it to hold reins in its mouth so she could cling on. Yet Sho's chubby frame could only jump a few meters before belly up swimming in the lake. Suddenly, a demon climbed the bridge and slashed Shifa from behind. Swift as lightning, she drew her sword just in time to block the deadly blow. Their duel was a blur too fast to see clearly. The demon proudly introduced himself as an 8th-rank swordsman from the demon realm, a master like Shifa wielding the infamous heavenly demon blade style. Xfar mused on the demon ranks, wondering if Pazu's rank surpassed this foe. Shifa also questioned why he wore a crown. The demon scoffed, claiming it was his stylish hat. Ambi's army had been burning the demons relentlessly, yet the fiends barely flinched. One sneaky demon circled behind to ambush Ambi, but Babylon's timely intervention saved him. Ambi thanked Babylon but felt his strike was too cruel. Babylon explained that though an assassin, he valued every life. Those possessed by demons were beyond saving now. Even his leader Day had fallen to them. Ambi took these words deeply to heart, gaining the courage to free the suffering townsfolk. Ambi then infused his sword with magical power, sealing runes to summon hellfire flames in the sky. As these fiery meteors rained down, the demon horde was utterly incinerated. Despite exhaustion, Ambi urged his troops to give everything to crush the invading demons. This was a battle for vengeance, for every innocent life stolen. Meanwhile, X-Fey twin blades in hand faced off in a deadly dance against the dwarf demon Titch. Both swordsmen unleashed lightning-fast strikes that dazzled all who watched. The demon wielded the heavenly demon blade style. X-Fey's graceful moves reflected the Illis clan's swordsmanship. Their clash was a tempest of dragons and serpents soaring through clouds. When Xfar shifted to wolf fang form, the demon countered with the great heavenly dog strike. Their blades met with a whirlwind that rocked the battlefield. Both wounded, but the demon's rapid healing unnerved Xfar. He vowed to possess Shifa's body, no matter what, to wield her clan's sword style fully. With a vicious slash, he tore Shifa's dress, revealing scars, proof of years of grueling sword training. By possessing her, he inherited her memories and skills painstakingly earned through time. Yet Xfar leapt into the air, unleashing the demon's own heavenly demon blade style upon him, forcing a desperate defense. Stunned, the demon couldn't fathom how Xfar mastered his sword style. It turned out she could mimic any opponent's moves after just a glance. She mocked him, calling him a headstrong demon who only knew theft, never true learning. As the demon fumed, Xfar summoned Syro, rummaging through his fur for something precious the demon slayer's sword Loi had forged for her. Xfar claimed those who borrowed bodies could never master the pinnacle of swordsmanship, and now she'd prove it. After brutal training since her defeat by Pazuzu X, Fa had practiced alone, daily wielding countless swords. Each strike bent blades, showing the harsh reality she couldn't unleash her true power if she kept breaking her weapons. Driven by vengeance for the slaughtered villagers, Fa stepped into a deadly duel, wielding twin swords against the dwarf demon Tich. Both swordsmen unleashed lightning-fast strikes that dazzled onlookers. Tich's techniques stemmed from the dreaded Tenma sword style, while Sympha's attacks reflected the elegance of the Illis clan's swordsmanship. As they clashed, their blades danced like dragons and serpents soaring through clouds. Sympha shifted into wolf fangs. Tich countered with the great celestial dog. When their strikes collided, a mighty gust roared. After a fierce exchange, both were battered, but Tich's regenerative powers gave him an edge. He vowed to seize Sympha's body, to wield the Illis style himself. He unleashed the radiant sword strike, tearing Sympha's dress, revealing the scars etched deep into her hands from years of grueling training. Possessing her body meant inheriting her memories and hard-earned skills. But Sympha leapt into the air, retaliating with Tich's own Tenma sword style, forcing him to defend desperately. Tich was stunned. How could Sympha wield his deadly style? It turned out she only needed to observe the form once to master it. She mocked the demon for being a lazy parasite, stealing bodies instead of learning. While Tich fumed, Sympha called for Zero, then scoured its fur for a precious item, the demon-slaying sword Jay had forged for her long ago. Tich claimed those who borrowed bodies could never reach sword mastery's peak, but Sympha was ready to prove him wrong. Since being defeated by Pazuzu, she'd trained tirelessly alone, breaking countless swords with her fierce strikes. She knew such recklessness wouldn't suffice in real battle, especially against demons like Pazuzu with hardened bodies impervious to most blades. That day, Loisi joyfully presented Sympha with a new sword. Having helped Dian with forging magic swords before, Loi was instrumental in perfecting this blade. Remarkably, the sword bore no enchantments. Loi had focused solely on enhancing its durability, ensuring it could withstand the brutal demands of combat. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of perseverance and growth forged through sweat and spirit. Sympha's journey was a testament to the fact that true strength comes not from magic, but from relentless heart and unyielding will. Having endured the full force of Sympha's power, she can now slash through those arrogant demons without fearing her sword breaking. But Loi warns that because their bodies are controlled by powerful demons, to truly vanquish them, Sympha must unleash a decisive, lethal strike. Sympha felt pure joy being the one to wield such a precious blade crafted by Loi, and as a reward she gave him a heartfelt hug. Yet the demon showed no fear. Instead, he taunted Sympha with painful memories of Dian. The demons had turned this land into a battlefield of endless war, condemning the future to ruin. The Assassin's Guild burned with fury, ready to clash in a deadly fight. But Sympha stopped them with a firm tap, warning that interference would only slow her down. Taking stance, she let him know that this bleak future would never come to pass. Without hesitation, she lunged 2 lightning-fast strikes, sliced him into pieces, her fierce spirit conquering with the legendary Tiger Claw technique. After days of torment, Jay's hair had turned pure white, his spirit nearly broken. Accepting his fate, he faced death without hope. But before his last breath, Jay warned Weir that his plans would fail, and that someday someone would rise to defeat him. Curious, Weir asked who that could be. Jay remained silent, his life stolen, as Weir merged into his body. Now, possessing Jay's form, Weir constantly glimpsed memories of his comrades, but felt no sympathy. Having the power of teleportation was all he needed. From that moment, the demons unleashed chaos across the land. After slaying the demon, Sympha paid respects to the man whose body was stolen, knowing he must have been a great swordsman in life. Not only Sympha, but everyone around mourned his loss, believing that freeing him from the demon's grasp brought him peace. Suddenly, steam rose from the lake, startling everyone. It was Loi and Wire dueling fiercely. The inferno they unleashed was none other than the hellfire technique Loi used to strike his foe. Loi had been darting around the lake, narrowly dodging Weir's demon attacks. As he flew, he strategized against Weir's strikes, noticing their many variations, but identical destructive effect. Whenever the demon attacks neared, they would break through only a few layers of Loi's protective barrier before fading. Yet Weir could transform his attacks into deadly Chuyin spells that broke through defenses, plus his most troublesome trick, Shadow Wolves, that teleported to launch surprise assaults. Forced to keep moving at lightning speed to avoid these unpredictable strikes, Loi's battle became a dance of survival. Each moment tested his resolve, pushing him to adapt and fight with every ounce of strength he had. This duel wasn't just a clash of power. It was a testament to will strategy and the unyielding spirit of a warrior who refused to fall. The battlefield was alive with tension. Steam swirling from the lake, the air thick with the scent of burning magic. Here, amidst chaos, a story of sacrifice, courage, and hope unfolded. Sinfa Loi and their companions embodied the relentless fight against darkness, reminding us that even in a world ruled by demons, the light of determination can never be extinguished. And as the battle raged on, one truth became clear: no matter how fierce the enemy, no matter how unpredictable their moves, the heart of a true warrior beats strongest when facing the impossible. In this relentless dance of life and death, every strike, every dodge, every breath carried the weight of a future yet to be written. Getting hit by one of Weir's ghostly spears means instant death. Right now, Weir just stands back, raining down long-range attacks until Loi is drained. This frustrated Loi so much that he switched to offense. Casting a twin spell, Loi fused 2 fire techniques and unleashed a colossal fiery demon that swung a massive fist at Weir. But of course, Weir effortlessly dodged with his teleportation. Instantly, the fiery demon smashed into a lake, sending steam billowing and clouding the battlefield, blinding all sight. To track, Weir Loi switched to sensing his presence through Kai. But Weir's teleport speed was lightning fast, leaving Loi struggling to keep up. Meanwhile, Grimo kept urging Loi to keep moving, or risk falling victim to Weir's shadow strike. That technique was a relentless thorn, making it impossible for Loi to stand still. Yet Loi noticed something when he stood still in the steam clouds. Weir didn't use his shadow strike. This clue helped Loi piece together Weir's fighting style. Weir can only use shadow strike when he sees his target clearly, so this mist was Loi's shield hiding him from Weir's gaze. But Loi had to close the distance to strike with his sword, so he moved in, creating numerous clay clones to confuse Weir. All the clones charged simultaneously, swords raised to skew a wire. One clone even wielded a real sword, tricking Weir into killing it, thinking it was Loi. Wounds inflicted by the clones were quickly healed by Weir. Proud Weir believed he'd predicted all of Loi's moves. No matter how fiercely Loi stabbed the demon race's, regeneration would prevail. But Gua was startled. Loi's cute clay clones hadn't vanished at all. The one Weir killed before was just another clone. Loi had handed the real sword to a decoy, keeping his true position a mystery. After guessing that Loi was watching from above, Weir was shocked to find himself struck by Loi's fire attack from behind. Loi then scattered his clones again, making it impossible for Weir to pinpoint him. Loi was delighted his simple plan was causing Weir real trouble. Though Gua could heal rapidly, he was trapped in a maze of clones, unable to find the real Loi. Weir decided to unleash thousands of ghostly spears to wipe out all the clones at once. When he spotted a kid using a barrier, Weir charged, mistaking him for Loi. But he was disappointed to find just a pile of rubble. Loi had cleverly used barriers to protect his clones and mislead Weir. Now completely disoriented, Weir could only attack clones. This thrilled him. It had been ages since he faced a worthy opponent like this. Meanwhile, Loi was sneaking behind Weir, without a defensive barrier, making Grimo nervous, fearing Loi might take a fatal hit. Earlier, Loi had crafted a unique weapon, a magic-absorbing sword that drained enemy spells. Even Grimo was amazed by such ingenuity. Loi used this sword to slash and absorb Weir's shadow strike magic every time it appeared. While analysing the shadow strike, Loi risked everything by staying visible, deepening Grimo's worry and admiration for the reckless brilliance of this boy. As Loi probed Weir's magic, he reached out to Jay's consciousness, hoping his comrade would respond. Their team was waiting outside. But Jay remained silent. Still, he revealed to Loi how to use teleportation alongside shadow strike. Loi then dispelled his clones and revealed himself facing Weir directly. Seeing Loi's slight facial injury, Weir boasted that Loi never stood a chance against him from the start. Weir taunted, questioning why Loi bothered fighting to protect those lowly assassins. He claimed that if they just teamed up, they could rule the world. But Loi sighed, calling Weir a fool. The demon race is born strong, but humans are fragile. They must grow through experience. Everyone fights to achieve their dreams, and Loi's dream is mastering magic. He had no time for Weir's arrogance. Infuriated, Weir launched a shadow strike at Loi, but Loi countered with a Kai-powered punch just as Weir teleported. Each of Loi's blows carried ki energy, making them agonizing to absorb. Hearing about ki for the first time, Guo was clueless about its nature or how Loi could track Weir's teleport points. Loi patiently awaited Weir's next move, knowing all his techniques were borrowed from others. Weir accused Loi of mere luck and arrogance, but Loi reminded him of Dee's dying words that Weir would surely be defeated one day. Enraged, Weir teleported again, but was caught off guard by a swift kick from Loi. Loi didn't stop relentlessly attacking Weir, who could only endure. No matter where Weir teleported, Loi appeared ahead, delivering a crushing blow. Though the demon's body could regenerate, the constant barrage forced Weir to cry out in pain. Each teleport was met with another brutal kick from Loi. Then Loi summoned a double spell to unleash a devastating fire attack. Unable to dodge, Weir was blasted into a molten lava pool. Weir knew falling in meant certain death, but as he tried to teleport away, Loi reappeared, kicking him skyward. In that moment, Loi recalled his past life, and this one wondering who created the spellbooks he studied. Perhaps a kind soul he'd never met. Loi longed to meet Jay to talk once more. Meanwhile, Weir lay battered, unable to fight back. Loi's mood turned serious. He was done playing and ready to finish this. Loi relentlessly pummeled Wisher, leaving him no choice but to endure the onslaught. No matter where Wisher teleported, Loi always appeared ahead, delivering a kick right to his face. Though demon bodies can regenerate, taking hits like that forced Wisher to cry out in pain. Every time he tried to escape, another kick from Loi found its mark. Now Loi summoned a powerful fire spell with a double incantation. Wisher couldn't dodge this fierce attack and was blasted into a pool of molten lava. He knew falling in meant burning to ashes, but whenever he tried to teleport away, Loi would appear, hurling him skyward again. In that instant, Loi's mind drifted to his past life, and this one, it had been so long. He always wondered who created the spellbook, imagining a kind soul he never got to meet. Loi longed to meet Jay and have a conversation with him. Meanwhile, Wisher lay battered, powerless to fight back. Loi's playful side vanished. Now he was set to finish this battle once and for all. Hearing this, Guar grew furious and unleashed his strongest secret technique. Wisher claimed that demons could freely manipulate magic in the air, condensing it into a devastating black sphere that could turn anything to dust. Though Wisher struggled to form the spell and threw it down heavily, Loi simply flicked his hand and the sphere vanished into nothingness, true to its name. Guar was shocked beyond words as his spell dissolved, suddenly revealing that Loi had created another black sphere to counter it. Infuriated, Wisher insisted that his spell was not something others could casually copy. Yet he was unaware that Loi had deeply studied spatial magic and knew the black sphere was merely a condensed void in space. When Loi first discovered this spell, he used it for fun, blowing away entire mountains by accident. Not satisfied, he created dozens more spheres and stacked them as an experiment. Guar was left speechless, knowing how much magical energy Wisher must have invested. Loi explained that when these spheres touch, they cancel each other out, a fact that amazed him as well. Reflecting on this, Loi realized the intricate dance of magic was as much about understanding space as power. His playful experiments had accidentally rewritten the rules of destruction, turning chaos into harmony. Guar's disbelief only deepened Loi's resolve, highlighting the vast difference in their mastery. This duel wasn't just about strength, it was a clash of knowledge and spirit. Loi's mastery of space magic wasn't just a skill, it was a testament to his curiosity and relentless pursuit of understanding. Even in battle, he was a scholar and an artist, weaving spells that defied expectations. This scene wasn't just a fight, it was a breathtaking display of intellect and willpower colliding under the crimson sky. Now, hearing this, Weir's pride burned hot, dismissing Loi as nothing but a foul-mouthed bug spinning tall tales. There was no way the Devil Clan's ultimate technique would vanish in such a silly manner. Worn out by his endless boasting, Loi's anger fled nose, running from the tension. Doubting Loi's strength, Weir suddenly lunged at him, but the moment he sensed Loi's magic power, Weir's courage crumbled like a castle of sand. Loi had crafted a swarm of dark spheres that left Weir speechless. No matter where he teleported, those spheres clung to him, like shadows never letting go. Below, the demon clan was blinded by the bone barrier, so Shin-Fa and the others teamed up, slicing down foes one by one. Meanwhile, Jen used her poison abilities, warning everyone to keep their distance, though Shin-Fa suspected she was just showing off. Suddenly, Anne noticed the sky was still pitch black, despite the clock striking 6 in the morning. The sun had yet to reveal itself. It turned out that the space around them was warped by Loi's magic. He had trapped a dark sphere and was pulling Weir inside it. Weir struggled wildly, knowing that if caught, recovery would be impossible. To survive, he decided to abandon Day's body, but Day's body had stiffened, trapping Weir completely. With no escape, Weir feigned being Day, begging Loi for mercy and even pleading with Day's comrades to save him. Coldly, Loi summoned a second dark sphere, crushing the demon beneath its weight until, when the two spheres collided, they annihilated each other instantly, evaporating into nothing. As dawn broke, Day appeared to thank Loi, then slowly faded away with a radiant, sun-like smile. Everyone below gasped in surprise as sunlight returned. Ren caught sight of Day before he vanished, memories flooding back of the past. Legends said the seventh prince was the kingdom's strongest born during a spectacular fireworks display at the royal castle. Rumour had it that the prince's magic shattered a hole in the palace walls. Day believed a child with such power could lift the group's curse, and everyone vowed lifelong loyalty if the rumours were true. Now, Zen was filled with joy, knowing every word from back then held truth, except Day was no longer alive. So Loi and Grimo created a symbolic tomb for him, though his body was long swallowed by the void. During the battle with Weir, Loi deciphered the magic that warped space. Every place Weir teleported was easily anticipated by Loi's keen insight. So when Loi created the void sphere, there was no escape left for him. But still Lee had to admit he was a demon of immense power. The essence of the Shadow Wolf's technique was crafted with such precision, so clear and methodical. And, before Jay's final breath, he completed this technique and passed on the secret to counter it. Jay entrusted it to Loi, making this victory truly his, not yours. Zen had listened to every word of Loi's heartfelt confession, feeling deeply moved. Seeing Loi alone, Zen wanted to approach and express his gratitude and share his own wishes. But before he could, Prince Anbei arrived first with a few words to share. Anbei revealed he had heard the whole story about Jay and the tangled truth behind it all, though the others had fabricated tales to keep Anne in the dark about Loi's true strength. Still, Anbei acknowledged Loi's kindness, how he had wholeheartedly helped the Assassin Guild. Though that guild had always lurked in shadows, bringing chaos and even kidnapping, Loi Anbei couldn't forgive their misdeeds. To atone for their sins, they pledged lifelong service to Loi, proving their desire to turn over a new leaf. Now Anbei sought Loi's opinion. If he accepted the guild, he would bear full responsibility and protect the royal family's honour. Loi found Anbei's words wise and true, promising to speak privately with them. He vowed that if they ever sinned again, he would shoulder the entire blame. Everyone was stunned by Loi's resolve, but Anbei never wanted to burden him. He cared deeply for Loi, his most cherished younger brother. Just then, Tao rushed over, fearing Loi was in danger, but the group stared at her like she was an alien. The feast was already over, and Thao fled back home overwhelmed. But Shin-Fa caught Thao before she could run wild, refusing to let her wander. Loi sensed great magical potential in the Assassin Guild, and their leader's kindness inspired him to help. The guild was forgiven, and in return they vowed to repay Loi's trust. Soon after, a small gathering was held near Jay's grave. Sharing food with the kingdom's princes, the others felt tense, but Anbei encouraged everyone to relax and enjoy themselves. Thao, ever restless, quickly picked a fight with Shin-Fa. Meanwhile, Anbei brought a bottle of wine to toast the Assassin Guild. At first they hesitated, being invited by the second prince was intimidating. But once the wine loosened their tongues, they cheered like family. Thao even hugged Jay's grave, weeping, mistaking him for a handsome young man. Anbei loved the joyful atmosphere and wanted to host such a party in the palace someday. Taria, drunk and bold, tried to flirt with the prince, but he remained sober and declined. Not to be deterred, she used her power to share pain, making the prince intoxicated like her. Everyone expected the prince's wild side to come out, but Anbei still held a grudge over Loi's underwear incident. Later, he sought Gali to settle the score. After Loi's battle, a hot spring formed inside the mansion, where everyone raved about the blissful baths. Here, Zen asked Xinfa for permission to serve Loi as thanks, and since Loi was present, he agreed immediately. Yet Ren still felt ashamed, fearing the poison in her body might harm others. Loi encouraged her to focus on mastering the poison, to become a healer. That was the path he wanted to see. Ren was deeply touched. Once shunned for her cursed body, now accepted by Loi, she vowed to meet his hopes with all her heart. From that day on, life in Solium's royal city stayed mostly the same, but Ren had become a maid within the palace, learning from Xinfa how to serve, perfectly preparing to care for Loi someday. Meanwhile, Prince Anbei reported everything back to King Luce, carefully hiding the story of Loi's kidnapping to avoid questions. Once all was settled, Loi and Grimo returned to the castle's library, filled with countless magic tomes Loi had yet to explore. Ren still carried the heavy burden of her poison curse, feeling isolated because it endangered others. Seeing this, Loi encouraged her to focus on studying poisons to become a healer who could transform her curse into a blessing. That was the change Loi wished to see. Hearing this, Ren was deeply moved. She had long been shunned for her curse, but now felt accepted by Loi. She vowed to do her best to live up to his expectations. From that day on, life in the Solium Kingdom Palace remained mostly unchanged, but Ren had taken on the role of a maid within the royal court. She was diligently training under Sympha's guidance to become a true lady's maid, preparing to care for Loi with the utmost devotion. Meanwhile, Prince Amb was reporting all events at Luce to the king while also guarding certain secrets. The shadow of kidnapping fears kept the king from pressing too hard once the ordeal was over. Loi and Grimo returned to the castle's hidden library, a sanctuary brimming with magical tomes that Loi had yet to explore. Every day, Loi lost himself in the pages, feeding his burning passion for magic. And with that, the first season of this anime closes its chapter here.